Doop, doop, doop.
Okay, hello. I am Golden Angel, and I'm here with my co-host Stella Moore. This is Scared to Success, where we talk about all things scary in publishing that help lead to your success. And we have a special guest today.
Oh,
Oh,
that's me. Wow.
oh, we've got an echo. Does someone have
Do we?
this?
I don't hear it.
Is there an echo?
I
Okay,
don't
maybe
hear
it
an
was
echo.
me. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Oh. That's a fun way to start things off. So we have a special guest today. This is Meg Fitz. Meg has 5 books out. Her 6th one is coming out shortly. And the reason we wanted to talk to Meg is because at under 10 books, we would kind of consider you a baby author. Like you're a newer author. You just started publishing within the last few years, and yet you're doing Kickstarters, which a lot of authors who, including myself, you did your Kickstarter before I ever did one. Um, I don't, Stella has now done one as in like tandem with me, but like you're out there doing this thing that a lot of us are kind of scared of. And so we thought you would make a wonderful guest for the show, and we're excited to talk about this. So,
Yeah.
Meg, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you write, just to start off with, and when you started writing, a little bit of background, exposition.
So I started writing back once I left college and was like, doing that real life thing.
Mhm.
And then I tried to be published. I tried to do the trad publishing right, and that was like 2008 to 2012. And self-publishing had been there, but not really. Like it
Yeah.
was really, really out on the outskirts. And I got my heart broken many times. And my book, Accidental Quarantine, was rejected because the main character had depression, and quarantine was not realistic. Now I wrote this in like 2010, and it was like a Hades and Persephone retelling.
Just a little
So
too early.
yeah, a
Ahead of your time.
little ahead of my time there. And I remember sitting in quarantine being like, man, I feel like I've done this before, but not in that normal like quarantine thing. Like I feel like I'm like, oh my God, right. I wrote this book. I wrote it. That's exactly what happened. And like I freakishly nailed quarantine. Like they spend the entire time watching TV, playing with their dogs, and working out. Like that's what they do. That's what they
Did you
did
make
the
any
whole time.
bread?
They
Did
did
they
not
make?
make bread, but they
Okay,
did make cupcakes.
fair enough. Fair
And
enough.
they were like 17. So what 17-year-old makes
Yeah.
bread?
So
Yeah.
when did you publish that?
So what happened with that was I published that in 2022.
Okay.
And my thought process with that was that I was actually writing a different book series. I was writing the
Mhm.
Plan series. And the Plan series I wrote because my mom was dying and I didn't want to go to therapy. And so I use this as a nice little distraction, thinking this is so much cheaper than therapy. Turns out it's not. But who knew? Apparently everyone. But so
Yeah.
I wrote this series, and I wanted to publish it because I felt like it was it had all the tropey tropes. But I didn't want. There's so often when a new author drops their first book and their first book just isn't good, right? Like they make a lot of mistakes. And then you've created this whole like foundation off of something that you just didn't know better, right? Like it's no fault of your own. You just didn't know, right?
Yeah.
So I released Accidental Quarantine as like my baby book where I learned how to like this is what fussy librarian is. This is what all these other things are. And I also did Vela with that. And had Accidental Quarantine not been successful in Vela, I don't think I would have continued writing at all. Accidental Quarantine was very, very successful in Vela, and I foolishly assumed it would always be like that. Guess what? It's not.
I get that. No,
No.
it's hard, like things. it happens, and because you don't know,
Yeah.
you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
And so it's reasonable to not understand that it won't always be like that because
Yes.
that's been your only experience.
Yes. Yes. So then I released the Plan series, which was Best Laid Plans, Failure to Plan, and Long Term Plan. And around that time, I realized that I was going to have a reader problem, which I never considered. Like, talked to a bunch of different people, and they're like, "You have a reader problem." I'm like, "It's not a problem. No one's reading it." But they're like, "No, these books are young adult, new adult." And then the idea was like you were going to start in this cute little world, and then we were going to jump 10 years, and we were going to see these kids as adults, right? And like who they turned into be. And they're like,
Yeah.
"That's a great idea, but those are two different readers. That's not the same." And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I did all my young adult, new adult under Meg Fitz, and now I'm launching Meg Fitzpatrick for my more adult stuff.
And you launched Meg Fitzpatrick on Kickstarter.
Yes. Yes.
Was
Yes, I
that terrifying, or did you just like not know to be scared?
So I did know to be scared. I knew that because I'd actually been on Kickstarter as a backer since 2014. Like I've been
Okay.
backing like a lot of stuff under my real name. And so I knew enough to be scared. What happened with the Kickstarter was that I decided that I wanted Shield and Savior to have this big release, and I wanted an audiobook because I met Paige Reisenfeld and I met Christian Leatherman, and I'm like, these are the people I want them to read my book. I was all excited. And then so I emailed them both. I was like, hey, when can we get a thing together? They're like, how's February? I'm like, that sounds great. And then I threw up in my mouth because I could not afford that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I need to figure out a way how to pay for them. And then I also did something also super, super scary right before that, like a week before, which was I pulled everything off of KU and I went wide and I started selling direct.
Yeah.
So I hit like all of those like, oh no, all at
Yeah, because you aren't just doing Kickstarter. You have a TikTok store
Yep.
also.
Yep.
Which I also have not done.
Yep.
So basically, when Meg decides that she's going to do something scary, she's like, "I'm just going to do all of the scary things at once."
All
We're
of
like,
it.
we're gonna separate it out into months and do one scary thing a month. And Meg's like, "No, I'm just going to do it all.
I'm gonna go wide. I'm gonna do a Kickstarter. I'm gonna open a direct store. Just
I'm gonna
all
do
at
an
the same
audiobook.
time.
So I don't do anything without a ton of research though. I know it sounds really scary, but like I went to InkersCon and over and over again I kept hearing about selling direct. And I started doing like the little math and I was like, that's really the way to go. And I had heard it in multiple places. And usually if I hear the same piece of information from 4 or 5 different sources, then I'm like, this is probably a trend I should hop on this. So even without a lot of books, I wasn't getting any page reads in KU. Like I wasn't feeding my family with KU. I wasn't, which if you are, I can't imagine how scary that is. And
Yeah,
I feel
different.
I feel very
Interview.
fortunate that I suck. And I don't have readers that I can go ahead and do these things without like major fear because I'm not feeding my family off of this. Like I have another job. And so because of that, I feel very fortunate in that I can do the scary things without like a ton of the fear. I have like 50% of the fear.
Right.
Yeah.
So your first Kickstarter, because you helped me with my Kickstarter, your first Kickstarter funded.
Mm-hmm.
You got your audiobooks,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're doing a second one. Do you feel like it's less scary the second time around?
So I do. I learned a lot, and yet I have yet to apply the stuff that I have learned to this new Kickstarter. Let me explain. So the first Kickstarter, I spent 2 months hardcore just promoting the crap out of it, right? Like just building my newsletter, doing a ton of stuff. And over the course of the Kickstarter, I realized like I kept commissioning all this art and like now that that Kickstarter's over and I have all this art and I thought like, oh, it's going to sell. It doesn't.
Right.
And instead of, but it does sell the book, right? Like the
Mm.
digital picture will sell the book. The covers will sell the book. The fun montages that you can do with the pictures will sell the book, but the
Right.
physical things will not necessarily sell the book.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I just haven't sold a lot of those. And I figured that they would be really cool, but no. So instead, I decided to double down and get even more artists and more art. So clearly, not learning from the scariness. No, no.
Well, I mean, it's still something that, I mean, if you're doing something that scares you a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah.
But also, I'm one of the things that just really impressed me, talking to you and watching you, has just been the fact that you are in the beginning of your career doing these kind of newer things, and doing things that a lot of that goes against a lot of the conventional author advice of, like, building up your audience before you do Kickstarter, building
Mhm,
up your audience before you do a direct shop or a TikTok
mhm,
shop.
mhm.
And, like, watching you out there just, like, hustling and make these things work for you anyway, and having success with these. I just have found, like, I have just loved watching it.
Thank you.
Um,
So
what
Kickstarter's a
yeah,
little wonky because
okay.
Kickstarter, it doesn't really matter at what point in your career, you can get funded, right? Because
Right.
Kickstarter, 50% of your pledges comes from like Kickstarter, like people who just like cool stuff. And so they don't necessarily know you. And then the
Right.
other 50% kind of comes from people who know you.
And I
So
will say I have become addicted to backing Kickstarters.
I know. I will back Kickstarters just so I can see the printing quality that someone else is using. Like, I'm like, "Oh, that looks pretty. Let's talk about your publisher and your
Yeah.
printer, and let me see the quality of that." So, yeah,
Oh gosh, I love that. Let
yeah.
me back this so I can find out what printer they used and how good the quality was.
Well, yeah, because so especially if you're, printing overseas, right?
Mhm.
Um, the print runs are so expensive, right? Like, there's a
Yeah.
couple places that do on demand, but the print runs are like you have to do a minimum of 250 books and that's like a big chunk of change. And then I've heard horror stories where people put out all this money and then like the books came back ruined or the quality
Right.
wasn't there. So like I'm very strategic. Like I do
Another
three
scary part
things.
of doing these things, because
Yeah.
it's not the usual printers that we use. Like, there's
Yeah.
so many moving parts and so many unknowns and
Mhm. Yep, yep. And then like I kept because the technology is getting better, like the technology between book 1 and book 2 is astronomically different, right? Like for book 1, I just had a foil cover and I was like, "Oh, it's so pretty." And now like I taught myself how to do sprayed edges. So now I can offer that in the Kickstarter. But then I also found like, oh, well, you could also have printed edges and then you can do this and you can do that and you could do a super duper duper special edition where every page is in color. And if you do forced edges with that, then every page is on color. So then it's more expensive to print, but you get a really, really cool product. Like, so it's a
yeah.
lot of that.
I think the thing that's always scared me the most about Kickstarter is, like, I don't know how many people are actually gonna want this thing I'm offering,
Hmm.
which is kind of scary in and of itself.
Yeah, I'm definitely having that feeling right now because like the month of May, I just haven't been able to push my Kickstarter. The month of June, and I'm launching in early July. That's really when I'm gonna like be very obnoxious and hop into everybody's a reader groups and be like, "Hi, I have a book. It's on sale, and then there's also a Kickstarter." Mm. So, um, yeah, and I definitely have that fear of like, well, what if people aren't don't want this book. And um, I'm also having like mini panic attacks because I'm launching every single book on Kickstarter, right? Of the entire series. I'm not launching like the entire series in a really pretty omnibus. I'm launching every single book. And in doing that, there's the potential that a reader could spend a lot more money on a book series. And then at the end, they'd be like, hmm? Like,
Right. Like if they don't like how the series ends or the
yeah.
final, it does put a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And so I always kind of think like, well, if the book isn't good, maybe they'll feel good that the cover's pretty, like I'm giving you something, like, so yeah. And then it really helps also to have amazing supportive author friends like both of you who backed the first Kickstarter. So thank you so much. So yeah,
Yay.
it
It
really
is a
helps.
very pretty cover.
Well, it is, right? It's again, it's easy to do scary things when there's no stakes and you have a lot of support and really kind people who are like, that sounds cool. Tell me more about it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like Golden said, you kind of went against like the grain of, build your audience and then do these big scary things because you've got people who want them. Like, did you have people saying that to you when you said you were going to do Kickstarter, or did you mostly just have people like us that were like, "Yay, Meg"?
it's a little so nothing about my career has been the way that everyone else has done it, right? Like I launched on Vella and then I took my Vella bonus money to apply that to other things. So like I've never done the very, very traditional route. And I have had people being like, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but like
It's working.
It's working
yeah,
for me.
it's working for me. And I also have a very so my long-term plan is to put 2 books out a year for the next when I started this, it was 8 years. So when I retired from my real job, I would have a backlist of about 16 different books, which would bring me close to that 20 because I saw like that 20 to 50. So I was like, well, that would be enough to kind of at least I could go full time or I could do more with that backlist.
Right.
So
And for anybody who doesn't know, what Meg just referenced is the idea of that it takes 20 books to get to 50K a year. So the idea being that once you have 20 books out, you should ideally be able to make $50,000 that year off of
yeah,
them.
yeah. But I follow like a lot of your advice, Angel. Like just the tip has been the thing that has really with my hand motion.
Just the tip. Get that tip in there.
um, has really like guided me along the way and has validated a lot of choices that I made as well. So because I'll do something and someone will be like, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, no, but it is. It is right. Golden.
I did things all sorts of wrong too.
Mhm.
I did it backwards according to the way it's like supposed to be done. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of it is that we each follow our own path. But I'm just, I was just like, I'm watching you do these things that I'm scared of.
Mhm.
You know, when I was Stella was with me when I was putting together my first Kickstarter. And Meg, Stella, and I were all on a retreat together, an author retreat.
It was a beast.
And Meg very kindly came over to walk me through putting together the back end of my Kickstarter. Because I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This terrifies me.
Mhm.
And she's just like, oh, here's what you do. Here's the things. Here's all the stuff. And you were just like so on top of it.
Thank you.
And I'm sitting here like literally over a decade of publishing under my belt. And I'm just like, and I'm baffled by how brave you are.
Again,
I am too, because I'm still like, Gold and I are talking about like there's stuff that I want to do for Kickstarter, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit back and watch you do like at least another one or two before I even like step into that. So like the fact that you were just like, nope, I'm gonna go do this, and I have like it doesn't matter that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna go do it. Like that to me is like, what are you doing?
so I also don't know enough to
some
be
of that bravery.
I also don't know enough to be scared, right? Like,
Right.
so with a Kickstarter, I figured if I didn't get funded, then nobody knew about it, so didn't care, right? Like, yeah. But I
Yeah.
got funded in 11 minutes, and which was insanity. Like,
Is
I
it a little
never thought
scary?
it was crazy. It was also pretty low.
Still, though. I
But
mean,
what I ended up with and what I had started with is astronomical. It meant that any book that got sold was profit. Like everything from that book was completely paid off and it was all profit. So sometimes it helps to do scary things. We'll see if this next one pays off. It may or may not. Like, who knows? Book 2 never really sells as well as book 1, but who
or
knows?
it may do even better because you're launching it on Kickstarter again.
Good. Now, I will say what was nice was I also had like months of advertising ahead of time, right? Like I spent a lot of time prepping my readers, prepping my friends about Kickstarter. And I'm not necessarily doing that for this time. So I only have like the month and a half of like intensity. But yeah,
Yeah, I get that. I kind of did. My second Kickstarter is also a little rushed, but it's going.
it's
Still
going.
going. It's going great.
I like every time you launch something, I hit refresh all the time just to see the numbers go up. Like I am the biggest like backseat cheerleader, which is why Stella needs to do one because then I can be your hype girl and be like, yes, Daddy's gonna love this. Daddy's gonna be so proud of you. Right, right.
Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. You
It's
said that
true.
like that. I had like a physical reaction to that when you were like, like my heart was like, nope. Not like, so obviously this is still something that freaks me out a little bit. And I think that it comes down to like what you were talking, like, what if I do this and nobody wants it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and because I had the benefit of doing the Cherry Pop and Daddies one that I did with Golden, and
Mm-hmm.
like there's this thing in the back of my head that's like that only did as well as it did because it's Golden. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I try to do it, obviously like there's nobody's gonna want this, but it's just me. Like they
Mm-hmm.
want it because it's Golden. So like there's definitely like that imposter syndrome that kicks in that I'm like, I would do another one with Golden. I don't know if I'll do one
Mm-hmm.
myself yet because I still don't feel like, but then I'm looking at you and I'm like, well, here's this baby author who's like, F it, I'm gonna go,
Doing it, yeah.
go
Yeah.
for it. And I'm sitting here like, no, that's okay. I don't need the firm proof that nobody actually wants mine.
Out there like, prove to me that you don't want it.
And then all of a
What I'm
sudden people
inviting
do,
is just
and you're like,
that,
oh,
like I have this idea in my head that like the only reason that one was successful was Golden. It had nothing to do with me. So then I'm like, well, if I launch one by myself and it crashes and burns, like that's confirmation. And I'm ready to, I'm happy living in my little bubble where I'm like, I don't have that confirmation yet, and I'm okay.
And
well,
yet you were with me. You were having conversations with me because my first Kickstarter, I was arranged by Shayla Black and Sierra Cartwright. I wasn't running it. I was learning from them. I was their hanger on. It was through them. And so when I went to do my own, I aimed so low on my funding goal because
mhm,
I was kind of convinced that it wasn't me, that it was Shayla and Sierra and Renee Rose and Samantha Cole and
mhm.
everybody else, and that all of them really contributed.
That's true. We had a lot of conversations
we
around,
we
okay,
did.
so do
I
you
remember
believe
this,
that
and I
you
remember thinking like, that's wrong. Like she's not right on that one, but okay.
Well, and even then, it was my own Kickstarter, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at like how much Stella and Ray's books, because they were add-ons, how
Mhm,
much like how much that added to the total, and I'm looking at this number, going, well, this is inflated. This isn't really me. This is inflated because of Stella and Reza. So now this next one I'm going to be doing it on my own, and who knows if anyone's going to want it because I'm not going to have
mhm,
this bonus stuff that my friends are doing with me.
mhm,
Like I don't have their audiences anymore, and
mhm,
I'm not, and I could see how much they brought in, which
mhm,
was a good chunk of that final funding goal
Mhm.
was like I wouldn't have made it to that level without their
Mhm.
contribution. Um, like y'all made a hefty profit off of it.
So we
Like
can all appreciate the irony that you're like, I wouldn't have made it without them, and I'm like, I didn't help.
exactly.
I'm sitting here like,
And then I have to like
Meg's
go
like,
and
do
do
you
it
hear
on my own.
yourselves?
Yeah. And then I have to go and do it on my own. Like that my one that's right now is like I'm by myself and I'm like, am I even gonna fund? I don't know. And I have, I went and did the scary thing. I'm doing one on my own. I funded on the first morning, even though it was a
Mhm.
higher funding goal.
It was,
We
I
finished
have
the
to
stretch
say,
goals.
like, it was a pretty high funding goal. And in case you guys don't know, it was $5,000. And um it I was very, very impressed because I've been watching Kickstarter and a lot of them haven't been funding at that level that quickly. So that's a
Mhm.
true tribute to you as an author and how well you know your fan base and the genius of launching right after Bridgerton. Like just you it was really amazing to watch because when you first told me what it was, I was like, oh, that's a
I
big.
know.
And then
That
like
was
you
right
hit it
after
in a couple
Bridgerton.
hours, and I was like,
Between the first half of Bridgerton and the second half of Bridgerton, where the entire internet is losing their collective minds,
mm-hmm.
waiting for the second, like that. Did you do that on purpose? I don't remember. I don't
No,
know if we've talked about this yet.
it was a
I
complete accident.
immediately,
The accidental genius that is Golden
I
Amy,
was
and
like,
I
no,
feel
no,
like that's
you
a
tell
good kind of
everyone you
nurturing.
planned that. You had like a cork board with string and all that kind of stuff. You do not
I wish.
say it was just accident. No, no,
I
no.
wish.
It was too genius.
No,
I wish
this
I
is
could take
conversations we
credit
have a
for it, but I
lot.
really can't. No. It was gonna launch in July. That was the original date, but that's what Shayla and Sierra asked me to do another Kickstarter with them, and we are launching that one in July. And so I didn't want too much crossover, and I wanted some time in between, so I moved it to May. That's it. That's the whole reason. It was completely accidental. I didn't even look at the
Genius.
Bridgerton
The
dates.
universe had your back.
The universe
Yeah.
has my back.
Yeah, so this is why you should never question yourself because like the universe is looking out for you. Yeah. Yep, yep.
I mean, it is one of those things where it's like sometimes, and I almost didn't do this Kickstarter because I was having to move things and I'm just like it's historical romance, which I've never seen. I don't know if there's been another historical romance campaign. I haven't seen one so far.
Mhm.
There may have been one before I got onto Kickstarter regularly, but I haven't seen one. So I'm doing historical romance. It is not a new story. So it's really, it is box sets that aren't available anywhere, but it's not a new story. Bonus content, stretch goals will be some new content, but
Mhm.
it's all content that's out there
Mhm.
already.
Mhm.
It's just it's in a different format than it was before. It's got the special edition covers and everything like that. But I'm like, I don't know if people are actually, do people actually want that? And then it turned out they do. And in a much larger quantity than I anticipated. And they want all of, like, I had to go add on stuff because I underestimated the
Mhm.
interest in the
But that's
special editions of this
so,
world.
like that's
That
incredible.
feels
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It absolutely, but I would have never known. I would have never known because I was so hesitant to do this Kickstarter
Mhm.
because of fear. Because I
Mhm.
was afraid that people wouldn't be into it because of the genre. I was afraid people wouldn't be into it because it was just me. It's
Mhm.
just my stuff. I don't have any other authors that I'm relying on for this one.
Mhm.
Um, was afraid that I wouldn't have enough time to really prep it and do it right because I had originally planned to launch in July.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of went, I don't know, I hit this like F it moment of, you know what, we'll put it up. We'll
Mhm.
see what happens. Stella was on the phone with me for like 3 hours doing math, which is where we got the funding goal from because I needed
Mhm.
to know if I just like what is the bare minimum so that I
Mhm.
break even.
Yep.
Like
After you were talking about that, I started to look at, okay, like how much do I still need to pay off for this book? Like I still need
mhm.
edits and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, and if I want these upgrades and all this kind of stuff and this kind of stuff. And I was like, Oh, I could fund and still very much be in the debt. But then the other thing is, as long in my head, in girl math, as long as you are charging more than what you're putting in, then in theory you should be okay, unless you hit that like the big scary stuff like the audiobook.
Right.
Okay. Well, if you ever want somebody to do real math,
I highly recommend getting a friend like Stella or being Stella's friend and asking her to do the math with you.
But
You know,
again,
I mean, we,
Stella actually
because
likes math, so if
yeah,
okay.
that helps.
it does. It also does take away some of the fear, like the very real numbers. For
Mhm.
me, that was what allowed me to do this because I was looking at like, okay, if all, like if only 10 people buy this because that's the minimum. Like I need to sell at least 10 of these. So I need 10 people to buy the
Mhm.
hardbacks. I need 10 people to buy the paperbacks. How much is that going to cost me? How much is the editing, the formatting going to cost me? Because I don't have to get them edited, but I
Yeah.
did want, I do need to get them formatted. How much is the character arc going to cost me? Like, what is the bare minimum so that I'm at
Mhm.
least breaking even and I'm not out any money on
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Um, and it was 5,000 because these are some freaking expensive books.
Mhm. Yep. Yep, yep,
So
yep.
that was how we got the funding goal.
And some of the math that we looked at was things like, because 48-hour books cuts you such a huge discount if you order over a certain amount.
Yep.
And, doing that math, we were able to realize if you get half that many people to order the books, it's basically the same price as ordering 100
Right.
of them. So,
Yeah.
like, doing the math definitely, and my husband would attest to this, like, doing the math calms me so often.
Mhm.
because math is real. Like that's
Yeah.
that's hardcore numbers that I can look at and I can say, okay, this is where I am, this is where I need to be. And Golden and I talk about this a lot of times, especially with a lot of our other friends, that like feelings sometimes get in the way of business because it
Mhm.
feels like I can't fund. It feels like, in
Mhm.
Golden's case, like it feels like this is going to be too hard. It
Mhm.
feels like this is going to be too overwhelming. But when you actually sit down and you break down the numbers and you look at it, like 90% of the time, it's like, oh, this is not nearly as intimidating as it felt like it was.
Yeah.
So I know that there's probably going to be a lot of people watching this going, you want me to do math?
Well, no, so then that's the scary thing is the math. And
Right,
that's
now
why
the
I'm saying
math
you
is
don't
scary.
have to do the math yourself. Get a friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get a Stella friend that will do the math
Yes.
for, not necessarily me. I can only do so much math at
Yeah.
this.
Dude,
Get you a
Stella,
friend
what
like
you need
me.
to do? You need to create a spreadsheet for Kickstarter authors that has all the formulas already in it and then just sell the spreadsheet.
You could
I
do a
might do that. You
Kickstarter
know
on
I
that.
love me a spreadsheet.
Yeah. You could do a Kickstarter for it. That could be your Kickstarter.
Oh
Mhm.
my goodness, y'all are crazy. So like a big thing for me is like I hear Kickstarter and I instantly go to, okay, well that's my base product. But what extras am I going to add to this? Because like one
Yeah.
of the things that I want to do a Kickstarter for is I would love to do a Kickstarter for special editions for my Charm City Daddy series. I love that series. It's one of my favorite series. I like the stories themselves lend to like I have so many ideas for covers and stuff that I could get made that would just be
Mhm.
gorgeous and everything. But then I'm like, okay, well, I can't just offer the books. I've got to offer character
Yeah.
art, or I've got to
Mhm.
offer, bonus content, things that are going to make people want to buy it.
Mhm.
That's not just the special edition. And that's where I start to get overwhelmed that I'm like, I can't just offer the special editions. I have to offer all of this extra stuff. And
Mhm.
it's all of the
I'm
extra
mostly just
stuff that
offering special
overwhelms me.
editions.
So,
If we
yeah.
hit stretch goals, they get some bonus stuff, but I'm just offering the special editions.
But
So,
you're doing the special editions and then like sorry, Meg, I didn't mean to
yeah.
cut you off. Like you've got like your queen box and your princess boxes and stuff that have like a ton of extra stuff.
But you don't have to.
Yeah. You don't have
But I
to.
feel okay. There we go back to feelings.
So,
I feel like I have to.
so again, this is where like not knowing and not having a backlist is actually really good, right? So what I did with my Kickstarter was I there was all these other little side little stories that I wanted to tell. So I was like, great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that as bonus content for my Kickstarter. And then because I have my own web page or my own store, half of those will go into the e-copy of my on my website, right? Because I've already written the content, right? Because I needed like reader magnets and all that kind of stuff, right? So if you got the Kickstarter, you got a paperback or a hardcover edition, then you got all that bonus content. But I've already written it, right? It's already done. Work's done. Then I moved some of that over to the edition that I sell on my Shopify store. And then the retail just gets the basic, right? So I've immediately made something very special for my Kickstarter people. They get a different cover, they get bonus content, and if you buy directly through me, you get half of that, right? Because I kind of want you backing the Kickstarter because that's what's going to pay for some of the other stuff down the road, right? And then if you buy from Amazon, then you get the story, like you get the what everybody else would be getting anyway, right? So
basic bitch version.
yeah, but like you don't know that that's the basic bitch version,
Right.
because Amazon readers are not the same readers as your Kickstarter readers, right? Your Kickstarter readers are either people coming in from Kickstarter or the people that love you, right? Like these are your super fans, and this is where you build your super fan basis. Like I now have like a street team because these people backed my Kickstarter and they loved it. And now I have a larger fan base than I did before. And I feel like I'm much more connected with them.
Yeah.
So
I love that so much.
So, I mean, that's a good point that there's, it's very different audiences.
mhm,
Because I was having that conversation with somebody about KU audience versus wide audience, and like
mhm.
when I went wide, how much of that KU audience did I actually bring with me, and things
Mhm.
like that. And the answer being a lot, but not as much as not everybody.
Yeah.
But I do know, so like when I put out I did a bundle of 2 books in another author's world that I had written. And when I bundled them together, I did add some additional content on Amazon. And I did have people coming to me and they were like, do I have to buy this other book to get the additional content? And
Mhm.
I was like, well, yeah. That was kind of the point.
Yeah.
But then I felt bad because
Mhm.
they were people who had already bought the original books,
Mhm.
and I did kind of feel bad about being like, yeah, no, if you want the extra content, like you're gonna have to shell out another, $6, $8, whatever I have it for on the ebook on Amazon.
Again, this is where not having a backlist is very helpful because what I planned on doing was initially the book series was going to be a 5-book series, right? Then I was like, well, I've got all this extra content, right? And all that extra content actually tells the main story that doesn't connect with all these little love stories, right? So what if I did a 4.5 that collected all the stuff from the Kickstarters, all the reader magnets, all that. So if you were buying on Amazon, you get the 4.5, right? And if you've been buying on Kickstarter, then you can get the 4.5 because I'm also going to throw some extra like 10 more chapters in there that this is all the information you're going to need in order to have an explosive finale, right? Like, and then I just keep with that trend of having the special covers and all that kind of stuff. Like I locked in my cover designer, the guy who did the first one is going to do the second one. There's a little, oh, what was that?
That happens. So if some Macs when you are on StreamYard, do this. See if this does anything.
Oh my god, I love that!
I'm a magician.
It's only certain computers. I've seen it happen a few times.
Oh, well, that was exciting.
That made Meg's whole night.
Yeah, I'm done. But
I'm
like,
done logging off. She's
So a lot of this is super scary because I have it all like mapped out in my head, right?
Mhm.
And it could fall apart at any point. But because I have it mapped out, it's not as scary because I know like the Kickstarter is getting something special. And then my website's getting something special. And the retail gets the retail. Great.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I did my TikTok shop was I had, because 48-hour books, you have to order, if you order 100, then you get like 25 free books. And that's what I was using to get my hardcovers. Again, smarter, not harder. And, but I totally did the math wrong on that one. That's where I really needed Stella. But worked out.
Yay.
Um,
Next time. Next time.
but I had all these books and I was like, well, I mean, I could try selling a couple and seeing how that works. And like, I haven't sold gangbusters, but I sold more than if I didn't have the TikTok shop, right? So I'm doing better because I see my Amazon sales. Whew, I'm gonna make a whopping $5.
Yeah. 5 books, $5. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, but I made $300 off of TikTok shop.
That's, I mean, I would call that a success
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So, now it's not like consistent, but sometimes I have like a really good day and all that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, and that's book sales for you.
yeah.
It's my book sales are not consistent. So
Yeah.
the daily graph is like up and down. The monthly graph is up and
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
my
I just,
eternal fear is watching that
Yeah.
little thing go up. It
Mhm.
terrifies me every day. If I have a day where it dips really low, like in my head, that's it, that's done. I might as well
Yeah.
like I will never financially recover from this.
very Tiger King there.
That's it. I'm done. Everybody has decided that they hate my books. I'm never coming back from this. And then the next day, like inevitably, it shoots back up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'm silly.
And I do that all the time, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, it's Tuesday. That's why.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Tuesday, Sunday, like yeah, there's definitely certain days where you can see the, and I have a very bad habit of checking all day, every day that I probably need to break because it is very anxiety inducing.
Check at least once a day, and I should know better at this point, but
Mhm.
you just want to look.
Yeah.
You wanna see
I
what's going
wake
on.
up, I check. With the TikTok shop, I like messed up my account somehow. Oh, and if you're thinking about doing a TikTok shop, what you don't know is that your sales, your orders don't go to your TikTok page, right? You have to have a separate app that will notify you for sales, right? So if you are not checking, yeah, ha, ha, ha. And so if you're not checking the TikTok shop website or the TikTok shop app for sellers, then you're not going to know about it. And
I'm already out.
me, where I was like, wait, I got a sale. And every time I get a sale, I'm like, that can't be right. Like, that's my immediate, like, that's not right. That's got to be a mistake. And that happened. And you have a very short amount of time with TikTok. Like,
Yeah.
initially,
Like 3 days, right?
yeah, now it's down to 2. And
Oh my
it's
God.
not, yeah, and it's not a 2 days to get it like packaged. It's 2 days packaged and scanned. Like it has to be scanned at either they use US Postal Service, but it has to be scanned at the post office. So if you go drop it off the night before, like there's no guarantee. Like what if it flops
Right.
in the whole thing? And then so that's what makes TikTok shop very scary.
Yeah.
But I don't sell a ton. So again, I can do scary things because I know what my numbers are and I know my numbers are manageable.
Do you
So
think it'll get scarier as you find more success?
probably, but I also like I pre-packed a lot of stuff. Like I pre-packaged everything. I pre-sprayed everything. I pre-did everything. So I have a stock on hand that all I have to do is like stick in a box and print out
Nice.
the label. And
So do
really
you just
like,
offer signed books? They're not like personalized. They're just
no, no.
okay.
Actually, I was afraid to sign the books. So I did book plates because I was terrified of like what if I mess up the book? And what if someone doesn't want my signature? Like the idea of somebody wanting my signature, that's what I'm like,
I love. Oh, Meg.
I'm
I
gonna,
was like, I sold $300 worth of paperbacks on TikTok, but these people don't actually want me.
yeah, no. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So like,
Imposter syndrome is so weird. Like we find the weirdest ways to be like, no, it's not me that
mhm,
Right.
everybody's excited about. It's this other thing that everybody is excited about, and
yeah, yeah.
it doesn't have anything.
They just
Nobody
got
actually
caught up
wants
in the moment.
me.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, uh, do you think you were more afraid? Because you said that, like, with your Kickstarter, especially your first one, like, you weren't really that afraid because you didn't know to be afraid, which is something we talked about a lot on our
Mhm.
first episode. Was like, there was so much when we first started publishing that we didn't know that we should be afraid of it, and then, like, as we went, we were like, oh, this is terrifying now. So,
Mhm.
like, do you think you were more afraid towards the end of your Kickstarter since you didn't know to like be afraid of stuff at the beginning?
So somewhere along the way, I kind of did the math, math. And the worst case scenario was for me to fund my audiobook and not hit that next level up. And that's what I did. So, like, because that meant that all of the money went towards the production of the book and getting all the stuff for the Kickstarter. And then I didn't have anything to like do advertising for, right? Like, I just didn't have it. Like, all the money went there. So that's when I started to kind of panic just a little bit. And I went to Charm City. So I had some pre orders. Some people dropped out at the end, so then I reached out to them and I made a payment plan for them, which I'm doing for the next Kickstarter, and it's genius. It's so genius.
I saw another author talking about payment plans, and I.
Hmm.
So, are you doing that like through PayPal, or so? Like,
So,
are you already fulfilling everything? Because, like, I mean,
yeah.
part of the appeal of Kickstarter is they pay for everything, and you don't have to. You're not out anything. Like,
So let's say I'm just grabbing Krabby Daddy because it's here. But let's say that this is the special limited edition cover of Krabby Daddy, right? Or for my book, it would be Sins and Secrets, right? Super duper special edition. And any tier over $75, you can do a payment plan for, right? You just have to pick that option. Now, the payment plan is this book. Let's say it's the super duper super special edition and it's $75, right? You pay that $75, but what you have like pledged is $125 for the super duper special book box, right? You're going to get at the end of all of this, you're going to get at the very least this because that's what you paid for, right? Like you're definitely going to get your book at your price because that's what you pledged. And then afterwards, right, you'll make payment plans directly to me through PayPal or Venmo or whatever, right? You'll pay me directly. And then once you are fully paid, then you get everything else. But if you back out of something, then or you're like, you know what? I thought I could handle it. I can't. Life got in the way. I'm like, that's cool. Here, you can still have your book because that's what you paid for. So at the very
Right.
least, you get what you paid for, and then all the bells and whistles you might not get because you didn't finish your payment plan.
gotcha.
So that's kind of
Interesting.
what that was my thought with that.
It's
And
just so much to keep up with, though.
well, last time I only had 3 people who
Okay.
did a payment plan, and those 3 people, like, that was $1,000. Like,
Right.
that's a lot of money. So, to me, if I can make something more affordable to someone, especially now, right? And
Right.
I can give them that payment plan option, right? Um, Off site, I'm going to make more money, right?
Yeah.
And Kickstarter, you end up losing about 10% on Kickstarter, right?
Right.
But if they're paying me offsite, I only lose 3%.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
long term, I make more money and I get it a little bit more consistently than that big lump, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, because it's just a pledge, it's not a sale, right? Like, they can back out at any time until that very final moment. So it does kind of give people a little bit more insurance that,
Mm.
like, oh, okay, yeah, like Meg's cool with this.
Yeah.
And for my first one, everybody paid. Um and so I don't know what my second one's going to be, but I'm offering those tiers just in case. And even for my high end ones, I'm still doing one or two tiers, like one or two options of like the payment plan. So for my top one, it is I will write a story with any of the characters that you want, and they'll do whatever you want. Like, do you want to watch them do dishes? Fine, I'll do that, no problem, right? Um,
I
and
love that.
then it goes into bonus content for book 3, and it goes into bonus content for book 4.5. It's
Nice.
harder, not harder, right? And then so I have it at like 450, right? So they're gonna back it at 75 because their base is that book, is that
Mhm.
deluxe book, right? But then they have payment plans that I state really clearly in the description.
Right.
You're gonna pay this much, then this much, then this much. And if your final payment is not like delivered by time of shipping, then you won't get the product until you pay.
Right.
So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
feel like I learned some more stuff about Kickstarter again.
Yes.
And also just, I have just loved watching you and all the like incredibly brave things that I feel like you're doing.
Again, I don't know what I'm doing, so it's
Which
easy.
is a wonderful lesson though, that you don't have that you don't have to know what you're doing.
Mhm,
And you can still go and make it into a success. And
mhm.
2, for those of us who are scared of it because we know enough to know that we don't know what we're doing, to be reminded that, again, you don't have to. We can do I
Mhm.
feel like so many of us were braver at the beginning of our careers when we didn't know, and if we can get a little bit of that back,
Yeah.
I think is a very important just, do the thing
Yeah.
because pretend you don't know to be
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, but also, like, do your research first, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
like,
I mean,
make
you
sure
don't wanna just,
you're
like
blindly going in. Like, I had researched about Kickstarter, like, 3 months before I went ahead and started going, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
homework, so you're not
Yes,
going in totally blind.
we definitely don't want this to be like Golden and
So
Stella told everybody to just go for it and not do any
so
research.
Just
second
That's
do
not
your
what we're
thing.
saying.
Don't even think about it, just jump, don't
yeah.
research,
No,
don't look at what's at the bottom.
yeah, definitely, like, do your homework beforehand.
Do all of that first,
Yes,
but don't be scared to try it just because it's
it's
new.
new, yeah,
Yeah,
because you also never know what's gonna take off and what's not.
right.
Like, I jumped on Vella very early on. Vella had only been around for, like, 9 months when I
Right.
jumped on that. Now, I don't know how much longer it's gonna be around, and I'm no longer on Vella, but, like, I jumped in, I tried it, and I made a nice amount of money off of it, so
Good.
yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a big thing for me because I tend to be very like there's an archetype that we've talked about before where it's like I'm gonna sit back and let everybody else do it and see how it works for them, and
Mhm,
Yeah.
then I'll do it. Like I am definitely not I'm gonna jump in the deep end and
mhm,
everybody can watch me do it kind of person.
mhm.
Like I'm still like I'm gonna watch Meg do it and I'm gonna watch Golden do it, and then like I know good and dang well Viv is gonna do it. So
Mhm.
like I'll watch
Yeah.
Viv do it. Like I am very much and I'm working on being, more of do the research, but also like take the plunge without be like having that, having to have that proof that it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, This was awesome. We're coming up to the end of our time. So thank you very much, Meg. Tell us where we can find you
Um,
and if you've done something scary this month or if you have something scary planned for next month.
so you can find me at Meg Fitzpatrick Shop. That's my website, or that's like my shop, because why have a website and a shop? Just do it all in one. So that's really where you can find me best. I'm also on TikTok, for Meg Fitzpatrick author. Yeah, that's what it is. And my Kickstarter. I mean, are there links on this? Can I like send you the?
I think I can add them later.
Okay.
So I will have them send you to me and we'll see if we can get them added to the YouTube description.
And as for something scary, on Wednesday, I am taking my national board test. And this is super, super scary for me because one, I do not test well. Two, it's like life-changing money, right? And it goes along with my like long-term life plans. And I have spent so much time on my writing. Did I spend too much time on this and not spend enough time on this? And what if I fail this? Like this is my like, ugh. I spent all weekend studying a lot, like a lot. So that's my super scary thing. But then after that, life opens up, baby. So yeah.
Well, good luck.
Good luck.
I hope you kill it.
I hope so too.
All right, Stella, what is either a scary thing you did this month or a scary thing coming up?
You already know, but
I do. I'll ask anyway, though.
To host a roundtable at InkersCon on blurbs. So I am currently working on trying to put something together for my roundtable at InkersCon. So next month, my scary thing will be hosting the roundtable at InkersCon and praying that I didn't oversell my topic of making blurbs easy and maybe even fun.
That's
All
amazing.
right, what's yours?
I am also doing a roundtable at InkersCon next month. I'll be honest though, for me that's not so much scary anymore.
You already did a presentation, so like
Yeah, I already did a presentation, so it's just kind of like, all right, well, these are things I like to do. I don't know if I've chosen a scary thing coming up.
Didn't
You know,
you just launch a Kickstarter?
well, yeah, and honestly, launching the Kickstarter, so that would be the scary thing that I did this month, and that would launching the Kickstarter, doing it totally solo, no friends on board with me. I mean, people are like, I still have my friends supporting me, but like no one else's name is on it. No one else is trying to push their product to their readers that's like joined in with mine, and it's all me.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is scary and validating to know that,
Mm-hmm.
I can do a Kickstarter on my own and
Mm-hmm.
people are interested in it. Um, but yeah, that was definitely a little bit terrifying. It happened so fast, like I said, because I had to move it up from when I was planning on doing it, that once I was just like, "F it, let's just do it." It just happened so fast, I couldn't really think about how scared I was, but was a little scary, and then it funded, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm a little less scared." Now it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but it's looking like it'll be a successful Kickstarter, so
Of course it will, because
Yay!
it's a golden angel.
so yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be back to talk about being scared to success in the future. Hopefully, in like a year or two, we'll be able to have Meg back on to talk about where all of this has led her career. I would love that.
I would love that too, because that would mean I'd still have a career.
I am so excited to
So
watch
scary
your
and dumb
career.
that I killed my career. Like, let's see.
I am so excited to watch your career.
I
So,
will
all
go.
right,
I can't
everybody
wait
go
to see
follow
where you're at.
Meg, watch her career with me. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.